So in this video, I wanted to show how to use physics in Blender to do some of the animation without actually having to drop any keyframes. I have a new file set up, and I can maybe start with this as just a warm-up. I'm going to take this a cube, I'll move it up, I hit G to move that up, and then what I'll do is go into the physics panel right here, and it says physics, and then I'm just going to use one of these. There's a lot of other physics that we can use in here, force field, collision, cloth, but I'm going to start with probably the simplest one, which is just rigid body. So we'll press that button, and then you'll turn on and get these options. So right away, what this does is, when we run physics, it's going to start from usually the first frame, and then we'll press play, and you'll see it automatically kind of puts some physics on it. It has gravity. And you can see what that does right here. There's right now I'm gonna maybe add another object for it to interact with. Like let's say Shift A, and we'll just put like a ground plane here. Let's scale that up a little bit. Now, if we put this rigid body on here and we just let it run, the problem is that everything's gonna fall. But we want this plane to stay still. So instead of setting it to the default, which is active, I have selected the plane. I'm going to go over and set it to passive. And from here, we can let it play, and it's going to act like something like a colliding object for this. And what we can do once we have this selected is look at surface response to, like, if we want this to be really bouncy, we can push that up to 1. We can see what that looks like. It's a little bouncy. I think that when you make this one bouncy too, you'll get a stronger effect. So that one's probably too bouncy. If you want to, friction is going to like basically refer to how much like sliding or slipping and sliding it's going to do when the objects hit. So by turning up the friction, you might also be able to make that less kind of unrealistically bouncy. But you can kind of tie this, tweak this a little bit to get what you need. So there's that, just kind of getting that going. And that's really like a very basic look at this. You can play with a lot of other settings that are in here, but again, if I was playing with this and I didn't like how much it was rotating around, if that makes it feel a little bit unrealistic, I can open up something like the dynamics in here. And if I turn up this value right here, which has to do with the dynamics, the translation, so that should now make this rotate less. And you can see it does a little bit less of that rotation. There's a little bit of damping. And the other thing you could also try for different results is like making this feel really heavy. So right now it's like at 1 kilogram, but if you make this like 10 kilogram, it's gonna just seem a little bit heavier. I guess the other, you might really see this if you had, let's say like a smaller cube that sat on top of this. Let's put a rigid body here, and that's 1 kilogram. And then we'll put these, oops, actually I need these two aligned, so I want to make sure that they are aligned. Okay, so we'll do that one more time. And you can see that object right there is going to feel heavier. And so that could be something that you can play with to make it feel more realistic. The next thing I'm going to do is maybe just look at some other things inside of Blender that we can do using this rigid body physics system. Now, if you have a lot of these, or if you just have a few of these pieces, you might not need to worry about how complex your scene is getting, but I'm going to make a scene that has that's just more complex. I'm going to kind of copy and paste things and maybe rotate them around so that they look a little bit different. So I'm doing Command C and Command V, and then hitting G to grab them and move them around, and then, oops, yeah, moving them around. Let's see. And so if I wanted to play these, they can all move around, and even this I think could possibly work without without worrying too much about the scene. But if, especially if there's other things happening in the scene, there was like lots of lights and other things that were pretty intense, we might want to go in and bake this animation down. So if we go into scenes right here, and we'll go into rigid body world, underneath here under cache, we can bake this. We want to go back to 0, the beginning of this, and we can, what we want to do is start at 0, and then we can bake this animation. And that's just going to run faster when we play it around. It's not going to need to recalculate everything. It sort of saves that. And with this orange bar down here, you can see that it's baked into the scene. This will allow it to play in real time without worrying about lagging. So inside this scene rigid body right here, there's other things to kind of look at more closely. One is the simulation start and end. If we change this value to 10, then when this plays, it's only going to start at 10, for example. Right now, it looks like it's baking this in automatically. And one thing I've noticed is that if we want to change like this value back to 0 or like let's say 1, it looks like it is changing with it. Sometimes there's a bug where it doesn't get rid of the bakes, and what I've noticed is like sometimes just going in and changing like the gravity, and this is actually something that's interesting. Instead of negative 9.8, you could set it to like positive 5, and then it's actually going to kind of float up like this. So that's something you could do in there, and then that's under this gravity tab. Let's do negative 9.8 again and go into the rigid body, and then we could change things like the speed. So if you wanted to go feel like it's maybe on a working somewhere that's like with less gravity, you could do something like that. Let me put up a plane down here and scale that up. And then again, to make this stay, we're gonna put it on passive, but you can see that this will have a different kind of slower effect on it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Inside of the physics here again, generally convex hull will work, but there are times when you want something, you might need to change that. So I'm going to show an example of that. I'm going to actually delete those, and in the example that I showed earlier, I have like a sphere, and I'm going to shade smooth and move this up here. And if I wanted like a pipe for this to go down, let me actually scale this down a little bit. I'm going to bring in a cylinder. So that's going to be almost like my pipe. Let me make it a little bit longer. And once that's good, what I need to do is like delete the top and bottom of this. So I'm going to go to edit mode. I'll hit tab and I'll select faces, and I'll select this. Hit X to delete the face, and then let me go back to object mode so I can move this. And then I just want to, actually let me go to wireframe mode so I can see this. I want to select this face with edit mode, go back to that, and oops, there we go. So I've just selected that, X, and delete the faces. And that's just, let me turn this off so you can see, that's just so that it's empty like that. And let me now just go back to object mode. Whenever you want to like edit or move the whole object, you'll go back to object mode. I'm going to kind of set this up so that it fits. I think it's roughly like that, and then maybe I'll move this up a tiny bit. So I want this ball to kind of drop down and go through this pipe. So I'm going to set the rigid body here, and I'm going to go to my cylinder. I'm going to set a rigid body, turn this to passive. But with convex hull selected, it's not going to work properly. Actually, let me go back. It's like hitting the edge of this, that even though it's empty. And what we want it to do is calculate the collisions based off of the mesh. This is what I want to be selected to mesh, so that once this ball goes down, it uses that mesh there, and you can kind of see it like actually goes down into that. And my plane is here. That's what you were seeing. That's how that works. And if you want to rotate this again, you can see it kind of is recalculating the bake. Now I'm actually a little bit off here, so let me just move that. Oh, I think this is where it's kind of helpful sometimes to have two windows, and it might be helpful to have a view like this. Okay, so this, again, this is helpful that sometimes you need to change the collision mode to mesh. The last thing I think I wanted to show is, like, let's say you had this or this thing moving, you had animating, and then the example I made, I had the kind of collision surface rotating. So if I did that while it was moving, I'm going to select the plane. I have this selected, and let's say I hit R and I want to like move it. You can see it's not responding to the dynamics, and that's because if we go into the plane right here, this mode animated is not selected, but once that is selected, you can almost do a real-time simulation. So you can actually kind of start moving this around, whoop, and you actually like hit it. It has velocity, but this is something that you could do. Oops. So it's actually, I'm doing this kind of real time. Maybe there's too much bounciness or something, or the weight isn't quite as nice. But yeah, if you select that, that's how you can make that work. And then you could keyframe this. Let's say we go back into rotation, zero that out, and we can hit I to drop a keyframe, and then maybe let's see where it comes out. Maybe here we start to rotate it, kind of like that. Let's hit I to hit a keyframe. But this way, when you play it, you can see that it'll animate, and then it will. Oh, looks like I didn't move it. So now I'm going to keyframe that, and this way, when you play it, it should have that keyframe change, and then it should be responding to the animation. So it's no longer going up, and it's going to, in this case, it's kind of slow, but it's going to roll back down. So hopefully this gives you enough of an overview of some of the features with the physics in Blender. I just covered the rigid body for now, but there's definitely more in here. But I thought this would be a good introduction to using physics and basically like being able to do a lot of animation without relying on keyframes. One thing I did to change, whoops. One thing I did in my animation just to show you this is I added some depth to this. The way I did that was just by selecting it, going to a modifier and adding solidify, and this lets me change the thickness like this. And from there, once I like that, I can apply it so that the geometry, the mesh gets registered, and then you can see that it'll be reflected on that. So just to give you an idea of what the actual scene was for this, if I look, I did put some materials and I have some lighting set up, but the simulation's working like this, and I just rotated this kind of quickly and let it slide off. So that's how this example animation worked, and I did change something in the camera. The one thing you might want to try is inside of the camera, you can go and if you're over here, you can change the lens to like orthographic, and there'll be almost like a parallel or isometric perspective, and so that could give you an interesting look if you wanted something like that. So that's another, that's closer to the other animation that I showed at the beginning of this.